All right, hello there and welcome to this edition of the EV Revolution Show. My name is Kenneth Bocor, your host for this review episode for this 2020 BMW Mini Cooper SE, the all-electric three-door coupe version. Thanks very much for joining me. And thanks very much again to BMW for allowing me BMW Canada for allowing me the use of this vehicle for a few days that I've been able to boot around the hills of Caledon here and drive back and forth a little bit on some errands. Let me give you the lowdown on this vehicle. It's been a pretty fun few days, so let me tell you a little bit about it. Now, this is BMW, especially the Mini brand's first foray into the all-electric landscape. You would have seen me interview BMW about 2 years ago at the Canadian International Auto Show. If you go look for that video when they were planning, and they seem to be right on mark with their plans of releasing and getting this vehicle out. And in Canada, it looks relatively very similar to what the concept showed at that International Auto Show here in Toronto a couple years ago. I do like the design styling. It's a Mini, so it's got the heritage, it's got the DNA, it's got all those facets that carry from the Mini that continue on. And it is a fun and cool and funky looking design car. It's got that youthful vibe and energy about it. And of course, energy is the key operative for this all-electric battery version. Now, make no mistake, this is a four-seater. It's a three-door vehicle, 2 doors and a hatch, and it is for four, but you've got to be a little tiny to get in that back seat, I'll tell you that, or smaller up in the front to make rooms. It will fit four, but it'll be tight. Really, this is designed for the urban people that need a vehicle to drive around, maybe one person or a couple to get around. Maybe they got a dog or a small kid or something like that. It'll work great. It is a really nice vehicle. The design elements, of course, as I mentioned, are all BMW and all Mini. The workmanship, the fit and finish of the material is excellent. I like the throwback to the British emblem, to the British flag for the tail lights there that they showed at the show, at the concept, on the concept vehicle. So glad they carried that over. And this is available in multiple colors and designs, so you can customize this a few different ways to get the look that you're looking for. Now, this version is the top of the line, so it does come with the sunroof, moonroof. It's got an all-leather interior. It's got all the bells and whistles that you'll get out of this. And it is fairly well equipped. I'm going to get to what I mean by fairly in a couple of minutes on the review. But overall, it's been a very comfortable vehicle to drive, even with my larger frame and not so skinny body to try to get in here and sit. It's been very comfortable and nice to drive. Of course, the heart of any EV is its powertrain and the electric motors and batteries. And this is no exception. This does have a powertrain rated for up to 177 kilometers of EPA-rated range based on a 32.6 kilowatt-hour battery pack, which is thermally cooled and thermally monitored. Now, that powertrain is made a single DC motor up front, which will give you up to 181 horsepower and 199 pound-feet of torque to get you quickly moving. It is a zippy car, and it will get in and out of traffic quite easily. It does support level 1, 2, and 3 charging, level 2 up to 7.4 kilowatts, and level 3 up to 50 kilowatts through a CCS port. Now, as I mentioned in the driving, it does have spirit to driving. It's kind of like a go-kart on wheels, but much more refined, of course. It's very nimble, very exciting to drive around, and it has a very small turning circle of 10.7 meters or 35 feet. So again, easy to make those U-turns, to get into tighter driveway situations. Again, a perfect car for Europe and urban centers where sometimes narrow streets are more the norm. It's got decent cargo volume, certainly not huge for a car in this class. It is a subcompact after all, but it does support 211 liters or 7.5 cubic feet of cargo volume just with the hatch, with the rear seats up, and you fold them down, you can expand that out to 731 liters or 26 cubic feet to store more goodies. Now, from a driving and a regenerative braking standpoint, this has two modes. It has soft and hard mode, and what it does is it allows you to select the amount of force or the amount of regenerative braking to recoup, and of course the names tell you what it does. I ran this on soft mode all the time because I figured that was kind of a more pleasant experience. Hard is quite hard. It does bring you down. It does support one pedal driving. It has a hold mode, so if you want to do all that, you can in this vehicle. Now, the interior, as I mentioned, is well appointed. It's very nicely done. No squeaks and rattles. The fit and finish is nice. It's funky looking. It's got older style switches to as a throwback to the Hamad years. It's got some little quirks about it, which is typical for British vehicles. It's got two displays, a 5.5 binnacle and a 6.5 touchscreen in the center instrument. It took me a little bit of time to get used to this center touchscreen infotainment system, but not that long. Again, just going down the menus and seeing what's what. It does have two various types of input. You can touch the screen itself, or you can use the rotary knob down by the shifter with buttons there to make your selections. Now, from a safety feature and appointments, it does have most of the check boxes checked for things like rear view camera, acoustic sound for pedestrian warning, stability control, traction control, and so forth. But one thing it does lack are a couple of key things that I think, especially in a vehicle of this price class and this type of manufacturer, we'll say in being BMW, it should have. It does not have adaptive cruise control. It does not have lane keeping or lane keeping assist type functions, or even lane warning departure as they call it, that I could find. And it does not have blind spot monitoring, which I was very surprised with, because that's becoming much more standard now through even a lot of different vehicles that are in much lower price classes than this one is. So let me just switch to the interior, take you for a quick drive, and give you my driving impressions. So quick driving impressions of the BMW Mini Cooper SE all-electric. It's a fun car to drive. It really is spirited, has more than enough power for the size of the vehicle, and the weight and everything, even with the batteries, more than enough to get around. It's like driving a go-kart. So lots of fun. Throw it through curves, throw it through bends, easy to park, easy to maneuver. Pleasant driving experience. I found good seating. Now again, seating small. You get a couple guys like me in here, it's going to get pretty warm pretty fast, I'll tell you that. But for the right folks, this will do. The noise isn't too bad. You should be able to hear me over the road noise. I'm going through a road that's not the quietest as far as asphalt goes. But it's nimble. Steering is very quick and precise. The brakes work really well. Everything works well from a compact package, and not to something that I would not be surprised in from the BMW brand and from the Mini vehicle. It definitely is a throwback homage to the Minis, and it's nice to see this in electrified form. So again, very pleasant driving experience, something that I could see myself driving for longer road trips, as far as, as much as the range is going to take you, and then charging and going again. It is comfortable from that aspect. I would like to see more range. But otherwise, that's it. As far as driving modes, it's got 4 driving modes: Sport, Mid, Green, and Green Plus. I usually keep it in the Green Plus, which is like an eco mode. And one of the other things that I've noticed with this vehicle is every time I start it up, some of the settings that I set prior are not retained. So, for instance, I set it into lower regen. There's 2 regen, low and high. I set it to, of course, the driving mode, and those aren't retained. I have to reset them all the time. So it's kind of frustrating. I did set up some driver profiles. It's okay. Typical BMW menuing system. It takes a little bit of a while to get used to it, but it's not that bad. It's actually pretty good. Great sound with the Harman Kardon sound system. Very nice sound. So anyway, pleasant driving experience, and certainly something that people will enjoy and have fun with. All right, well, I was going to show you the Mini E's adaptive lane keeping, but it doesn't have it. At least if it does, I can't find it. And the cruise control doesn't seem to be active either as far as adaptive. Sorry. It's just a manual cruise control, which works fine, but obviously there's no adaptability to slow down for the traffic in front of you or keep a space. So that seems to be manual. If there is any lane keeping, I'll keep looking, but I didn't find anything anywhere on the instrumentation to activate it, nor in the menu system to turn it on. And the cruise control just seems to be your normal cruise control that we've all loved over the last few years. Other than that, I mean, you can see the heads-up display if it comes through on the video. It might be flickering because that's what happens with LEDs. But otherwise, it's a comfortable ride. It's relatively quiet. I've actually got the sunroof not open, but the blinds for the sunroof open, so that will add a little bit more sound. But going on the highway speed here, it's a pleasant ride. So you can see the dash is fairly laid out. It takes a little bit of time to get used to the buttons here and the menuing system as I went through it. I do like the colors. It's funky, I guess is the word. The green is showing that I'm driving in a fairly economical way, or under their e-power, as you can see here. And even on the HUD, if you can see that, it's got a green with the speed indicator, so I'm not driving crazy, and it's fairly efficient registering. Let's see if I can get the instant efficiency here of 16.6 kilowatt hours per 100 kilowatts per 100 kilometers, right now. So not the greatest efficiency. Certainly we'd like to see somewhere around the 14s, 13s, 12s, high 12s to be super efficient. Certainly the Model 3s can get into the 14 range. But that's one thing that I understood about this vehicle, is efficiency isn't the greatest. But I'll see. I'll monitor, track my kilometers, and see how it goes. But it is. So let's get into pricing on the BMW Mini Cooper SE. It's not cheap, but it's not overly expensive either, depending on how you look at it. It does come with three trim levels: a Classic, a Premier, and Premier Plus here in Canada. That start at $39,990 Canadian and peak up at $47,990. All three models qualify for the Canadian federal incentive, which is $5,000. So when you look at the Classic Edition, which is fairly well equipped, including your PDI and your fees and your taxes, you can get this vehicle out the door for somewhere around the $43,000 to $44,000 mark, which isn't too bad in the world of EVs as we know it. Now, my tester was, of course, the Premier Plus Edition with all the bells and whistles, and that would be closer to $50,000 out the door. So I've had a few pleasant days with this vehicle, but there's always some pros and cons, and let me run through some of those. From the pros, the build quality and the comfort is very, very nice. It's certainly not like the big SUV that I drove before. From a comfort, it's not supposed to be. The suspension is sporty. It has a decent feel. You do feel the bumps in that shorter wheelbase again, a little more boxier, but it does manage it very well, holds the road quite well, and it lets you zip in and out like a go-kart, as I mentioned earlier, and a very solid BMW build quality. It is zippy in the driving behavior, great for urban areas, even changing lanes on highways, no problems. Sound is very quiet, not much sound noise when you're going at 100 kilometers an hour, 110 kilometers an hour or so. It's a very comfortable experience. It's got a good list of standard equipment in the vehicle, as it should in this price point, and being that it's a BMW. However, as I mentioned, I would like to see more, and that's coming up in the cons. It has this funky, energetic styling, as I mentioned, which kind of really brings a fun atmosphere to the vehicle. Not as much as maybe the VW Volkswagen Beetle, or more polarizing styles and some other vehicles out there, but because of the color palettes that you can mix up, you can kind of customize this to be your own. And it does exude, is that the word I'm thinking for? You know what I'm trying to say, folks. It's early morning and it's cool in here and bright and sunny. It does really show excitement, and it feels it when you drive it. It's a very fun car to drive. And the pricing that I mentioned, it's really at a good price point when you factor in the Canadian federal incentive, and in other areas like the US and other countries that have programs, state, national, and other local incentives, you can get this car at a pretty good price point in comparison to others. Now, some of the cons, again, I mentioned some of the lack of those standard safety features, which I think should be standard, but they're not there. And I think that that's pretty important nowadays. This has good visibility, but blind spot warning, I think, is a key now for many people, because many people are getting lazy and checking over the shoulders. I'm still old school. I do it all the time. But, technology, we need it to help. And I think some of those other features should be there as well. Now, the passenger space could be a con. Again, I think people buying this vehicle know the space limitations from a passenger perspective and cargo capacity perspective as well. So it's certainly not something you can hide. It is a small car, but it is a Mini, and that's the way that car is built and marketed. It was much smaller, the original one. So that can be a con depending on what you're looking for in the marketplace. Now, the battery range, I talked about it in my driving impressions, and it's been pretty good. I have been seeing about 165 kilometers on a full charge, 150 to 165 in the couple of charges that I've done and some driving that I've done around the area, which is okay. So what that means is that it's fairly accurate in its predictions from a range, which is nice to see. However, I still think that this battery is too small nowadays, depending on, especially when you factor it into the 200-mile club and beyond. That's kind of the de facto standard nowadays. And for the price point that this comes in at, to have a 32 usable kilowatt hour battery pack is a little low in my opinion. It should be 40 or more in that aspect, where, you know, as I mentioned, 200 miles, 300 plus kilometers is kind of the new norm. Now, of course, not to say this won't work. It certainly will work. It will work for many that this will fit within their daily use driving patterns. It's a fun car to drive, great for zipping around urban areas, great for the European market, of course, with narrow streets and all that kind of stuff. But here, even Canada, with a little bit more of our vast expanses, this is a comfortable car to get you around, very solidly built, fabulous Harman Kardon audio system, so you'll enjoy the experience when you're in the vehicle. But the range, again, you're going to be finding yourself stopping, and it only supports up to 50 kilowatts, which we know it won't pull full. It'll probably pull around 45, 47 when it's when it's at a low state of charge. So it'll take you 45 minutes to get up to 80% or so, 30 to 45 minutes, and that could add to longer road trips. But certainly for within the medium range that this is designed for, it's a great vehicle. All right, so what's my verdict on this vehicle? Well, you know, I love all electric vehicles, you guys know that, so it's always a thumbs up from that perspective. Definitely give it a thumbs up if you're in the market for a Mini Cooper, a vehicle. It's a fun vehicle, has a lot of funky elements to it. You certainly won't be disappointed as long as you understand the range limitations and what it brings you. It is pricey for the range that you get, but you're getting that build quality, you're getting the marquee of the BMW and the Mini name and the heritage that goes with it. And of course, it does have a somewhat accessible price point. So when I factor in the basic version with the Canadian tax credits to get it in under $44,000 Canadian out, you know, on the road, out the door, that's a pretty decent price for a car that you get of this build, finish, and quality. Now, there are competitors out there in the Nissan Leaf, in the Chevy Bolt, in the Hyundai Ioniq even, the newer one, which has much more range than this, at a very similar price point. You might even be able to find it a bit lower. So there are good alternatives, but none of them have the BMW and the Mini marquee and heritage that this does, and the fun factor, in my opinion. All right, and that's it for this edition of the EV Revolution Show review of the 2020 BMW Mini Cooper SE all-electric 3-door. That's always a lot to say, folks, when you talk about electric cars. Thank you very much for watching, subscribing, checking me out on YouTube. Please send me your comments. If you're an owner of one of these, I'd love to hear from you. Of course, subscribe if you haven't. You can also click that bell and get instant notifications when I push a show up. Thank you very much. Of course, humble thanks to my Patreon supporters. You know who you are. I'm always very humbled when I see the Patreon, and I talk to a lot of you quite frequently, and I appreciate the communications and the feedback. As always, please continue to stay safe. We're getting into the early parts of winter, or fall anyway, and then winter follows. So this is the seasons now that we're going to start getting hammered, so please, you know what to do. Stay safe. Continue to follow the EV Revolution. Lots of stuff going on. And again, thanks for everybody for supporting me. And until the next time, everybody stay safe, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye-bye.